Hey guys, welcome back to Paris Blockchain Week with our partners Crypto Slate. It's day 2 here at Paris and I've got an amazing guest with me today. It's Filippo Chisari, Web3 go-to-market specialist. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Okay, so how are you finding Paris Blockchain Week?
So far so good. Second day is kind of going slower, but so far so good.
So far,
how
so
about
good.
yourself?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I've had some great chats, and I'm looking forward to this one especially. But yeah, it's my 3rd Paris Blockchain Week, I think, so it's been interesting to see them move around from location to location. But yeah, looking forward to the side events tonight as well. I think
Yeah, they really stepped up their game this year.
Yeah.
And we were hosting the dinner yesterday, which was pretty nice. It was really good.
Yes. All right, so Filippo, so tell me a little bit more about yourself. So I understand that you obviously are a consultant, you're a Web3 specialist, you work with a lot of brands, and obviously it's such a hot topic, Web2 into Web3. We've seen so many brands jump in, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of horrors and also a lot of success. So how has that been? How has that process been?
So at the moment, I feel that there is a bit of a stalemate with established brands, and also with some of the layer 1, layer 2 chains. From the brand's perspective, the tier 1 brands have accomplished, in a way, their kind of PR hype with regards to Web3 and potentially moving to the next shiny thing, which is AI, as we know.
Yeah.
And the tier 2 brands are kind of waiting around for the Nikes and the Adidases to do their thing, or at least that's the feedback that I gather from the conversations that I'm having when I'm trying to sell myself, to be honest.
Yeah.
With regards to the layer 1 and layer 2 chains, the foundations themselves are having a bit of a hard time, I think, with some of the cash that was thrown out, arguably irresponsibly during the start of the bear, because they were just, putting money out. FOMO hit them, and they were not as well versed in following through, making sure that these projects that they were financing were actually going to be commercialized beyond, the kind of the initial part. So yeah.
Yeah, interesting. So I mean, obviously you work very closely with brands. I read about what's going on with the brands, and I think like Polygon is obviously a brand that has onboarded tons of. Layer 1 or layer 2, should I say? It's onboarded a lot of brands. So like I wanted to ask you, what are, based on the conversations you've had, what are the layer 1s or layer 2s that are most interesting to brands?
Well, so let's start by saying that what people are not aware of is that many are aware of it, but not everyone, that some of the chains are paying the brands to work with them. I would say that in terms of established brands that are in the, let's say, top 7 industries that are joining the Web3 space, which are fashion, luxury, retail, sports, music and entertainment, and food and beverage. I would say that the most established kind of brands are working with, well, number 1 is Polygon, obviously. And then I would say it's probably Tezos, and then I would say it's Algorand, and the other ones have done a bit of a lesser job. Solana also, actually, but that's, kind of, let's say that the brands that have built with these are kind of waiting now, and I think that the foundations are also moving away from that idea of, okay, let's enable adoption for those brands. They did their thing, and they're like, okay, now we're moving from the working with the brands to moving to working with the ventures themselves and building sort of the first unicorn use case, which is, obviously there are no unicorns because most of the ventures in the Web3 space are at A round, which is a ridiculous A round compared to previous spaces, right? It's like 60 mil, 50 mil is an A round. It's crazy. Whereas in like B2B SaaS, it would be 15 mil. But I think that they're moving away from working with established brands and going to the venture side, which for me personally creates a lot of space for a go-to-market, because if I were to have a go-to-market focused conversation like 2 years ago in the space, people would look at me funny and be like, what is go-to-market? I don't even know I need go-to-market. Now they're like, okay, well, we got those that survived or are surviving, they got the initial funding round, and they're like, okay, now we need to hire a team. We need to create a revenue engine. How do we do that? And that's where this comes in. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, so look, I mean, obviously there's been a wide range of brands that have entered and epically failed or done very, very well. And we've seen on a broad spectrum, like for example, Reddit came in and they did their digital collectibles, didn't call them NFTs, and they had a great success as far as I can see. Then other brands maybe didn't do so well. So if I'm a brand watching this right now, what are the kind of 3 key pieces of advice you'd give them when entering Web3?
Wow. I would say test, I would say segment, and I would say think long term. So I'll start with the last one. First of all, the reason why a brand would join the Web3 space would not be specifically, I mean, yes, the effort needs to be ROI driven, and some brands have been doing it really well.
Yeah. Which brands?
Which brands have been doing? Well, I mean, so Tiffany, Nike, Adidas. They've been doing it. I mean, they made. I think the top 4 have made collectively 100. Sorry, no, it was only Nike. The top 10 have made 246, if I'm not correct, $1 million out of their NFT collections.
And but what about the people that are using it? That's more important than the money they made.
No, I know, of course. I'm saying from the brand side, the ROI side is that there is an ROI. You can have the effort ROI being ROI driven. Many brands have actually donated the revenues because they didn't want to have crypto as part of their books, believe it or not. But the truth is, when joining the Web3 space, the brand should always think about the long-term play. It's about positioning yourself for future generations of buyers, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, who are digital natives and they're looking at the world in a different way. They care less about, they care about brand identity. They see brand identity in a different way. They care about being part of co-creating the experience together with the brand. So that's why co-creation is a big theme at the moment. And that's kind of the way to look at it. To really think about this as a long-term play. It's like, okay, I don't want the brand to disappear in 10 years. And that's why also automotive, by the way, sorry, I forgot to mention this in the top 7. Automotive is huge. Why is automotive huge? So like a couple of years ago, automotive was like, how are we going to survive? We're going to go into electric vehicles. Now electric vehicles is no cool anymore because Gen Z don't care about even having a vehicle, because if you live in a major city, you don't want to be stuck and you have public transport, which is super efficient. So what do we do now? Okay, let's try and see how we can create the next level of customer engagement and brand loyalty through using Web3 as a tool set, right? And that brings me to the other 2 points which I suggested before, which is sort of testing and I don't remember what the other one was, but yeah, essentially what I'm trying to say is one should focus only on or mostly on using Web3 as a tool set. People think it's an end goal. It's not an end goal. I created this model called the pyramid model where I talk about the different layers at which a brand can kind of get involved. The first layer being the layer of decentralization or co-creation with the buyers. Then on top of that, you have tokenization or token-enabled, token-gated, creating a token-gated experience. And then on top of that, you have the immersiveness layer, which is essentially creating utility either with an immersive experience or in real life experience. And there's different ways to approach this. You can start at the tokenization layer or creating a decentralized community that is then token gated, or you can start with a physical experience with a phygital product, which is, is like, there's different ways to do it, right? So an example, I'll give you examples because otherwise people are like going to be like, what are you talking about? So
yes,
let's say it's a co-creative, like Nike swoosh, right? They started with an NFT collection. Well, they initially, bought an agency, which is one of the 3 ways to also kind of work with NFTs. You either buy an agency or create your own collection, or you partner with an existing collection. But basically, they bought Artifact. Yeah. Eventually, they created the collection. The revenues were amazing. Then they started creating this community, the token-gated community. Then now they're doing what the token-gated community will allow you to do is to, of course, co-create and whatnot, but also to leverage experiences in real life, right? I don't know. Watch brands are taking a different approach. They're starting with the physical product, which is then authenticated through on blockchain, right? Yeah. Like on chain, and that allows them to then become part of a community where they can leverage in real life experiences. Some have started with the immersive experience kind of layer. So some automotive brands, created their presence in the metaverse, which is. Some of them are closing it already. Is it good? Is it bad? I'm not going to comment on which starting point is the best starting point, but there are different ways to approach it as long as you are keeping and testing like the 3 different layers. I don't know if this makes sense, but
yes, yeah, okay. No, it's interesting, very interesting indeed. And so how has the brand's requests from your skills changed from when you...
It's changing all the time.
Until now, like from, I don't know, 2020, 2021, I'm not sure when you started doing this with Web3 brands, but until now, what are the trends and how have they changed?
So they change, like every 3 seconds the ask is a bit different because the priorities change. That's the truth.
Does it just follow the hype cycle?
No, it follows no, it's much more complicated than that.
Okay.
There's people that are responsible within brands that are, the Web3 leaders, and very often they are in a very difficult position. And I'm trying to be empathetic towards the person who is, usually a Web3, like a digital native or a person that understands it, and they then need to get internal buy-in. And it's very difficult to get that because obviously the board is often not understanding what is going on, or sometimes they just say, oh, great job, like getting us on the media everywhere, but where does it go from there? And that's why they, I know of some projects that have started and they're like, okay, now there's pushback now. And that's why now it's evolving. It's not changing, it's evolving into something a bit more solid that has a real business model behind it. And I think that that's why I also said in the beginning of our conversation, it's getting into a stalemate at the moment. That's why also I am kind of reshifting my personal focus to working more with ventures. So yeah, that's...
Okay, yeah. So let's talk a little bit about that then.
Sure.
So I understand, you told me a little bit before we started the interview that you might be launching an incubator.
Might be, it's happening for sure.
It's happening?
Yes.
Okay, so tell us more about that.
Sure, so I've been working with acceleration and incubation programs for a couple of years.
Okay.
I have joined the Techstars Web3 Accelerator as an in-residence mentor, basically. It's on the commercial side, so commercial advisor. Or chief commercial officer, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
The bottom line is, I really appreciate the way the accelerator took this, or they offered this as an option, because they really understood that there needs to be a commercial enablement from day one, which is what I've noticed is lacking in many of the accelerators. So 2 things. One, because of the 3 things actually. One, my personal background has been in B2B SaaS and in go-to-market from seed organizations that are funded at 5 mil, and kind of getting their go-to-market engine started up until aligning go-to-market for a D round company with 150 mil funding and 60 mil ARR, and then what's happening is companies are going into mergers and acquisitions, and they buy multiple companies that are then multiple product features, and the entire organization needs to align under a unique value prop, a unique positioning, a unique messaging, and that that's kind of the depth at which I personally operate, and I like to operate, and that is something that is very much lacking in the Web3 space. I think it'll be there, but it'll be there when real business models will be solidified. That will be in about 5 years, I think, my personal opinion. And that can also be applied to very early stage. Like this conversation can also be had at very early stages.
Yeah.
And it's completely, it doesn't matter if it's B2B or B2C or D2C, like direct to consumer, it doesn't matter. This is still something that is also applicable and is vertical, like go-to-market strategy is like vertical agnostic, and it's so important. And that's why I appreciate, for example, Techstars Web3 making this commitment to saying, okay, we want to start the commercialization conversation from day one, because that's what's missing. That's what I've seen is missing. And that's the second thing I wanted to say. That's missing in most accelerators. Most accelerators are focused on, their success is based on additional funding in the first year and net promoter score for the accelerator. And the net promoter score is always good because everyone gets a lot from accelerator and the network from accelerators and the networks themselves. But the funding part is always the challenging part. And some of the accelerators prepare you to be excellent TED talkers at presenting your idea, but they're not as good at getting you the traction that you need from the commercial standpoint, from the customers. Because once you have that, the funding will come. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's kind of what's missing. And so that's also, by the way, the focus of the accelerator that we're launching is going to be that. It's going to be commercial traction, and it's going to be also focusing on choosing ventures that are catering for the enterprise world. Because I believe personally that the 99%, today there's like 81 million wallet users or whatever. It's 1% of the world basically who are in Web3.
Yeah.
On average. And what about the 99% of the world that's still missing? They don't care about, people pitching them products for 30 minutes. They care about value and how it changes, the change that it enables in them, like how a Web3 solution makes their life better.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think the enterprises, which we've seen in the media, have actually enabled Web3 adoption to the point where it is today, right? It's not the degens and the sorry for all those listening, but it's not the degens that have made it happen. It's actually the brands that have started talking about it that brought it to the media's wider attention.
Yeah.
And they are going to be the ones that once the senior leadership in those brands will get it, and the board will get it, and the UX UI will be seamless for them, through them, it will happen, right? And that's why I think that the accelerator should cater for ventures that are enabling enterprise adoption.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. It sounds very, very exciting, and I love the fact that you're focusing on traction and commercialization, because as you say, a lot of incubators, they help them come up with the idea, like I said, help them get funding, and then they're off, and then they don't become a business, and then it's just like a washing machine of new people going through incubators.
Yep.
So, be interested to see, how this goes. So, like, what stage of a project of that will join your incubator are they at? Are they like brand fresh, or are they already maybe like they've already got like a business, but they haven't got traction yet? Like,
well, the ideally, we are looking to bring in startups that are not at the ideation phase, but rather an MVP. So that's the thing, right? And that's also part of the accelerator play is always based on the idea of investing, and I think that some of the VC funds are afraid of that in a way, because they're like, we need the product market fit side to invest, the 5 million, and then it's easier to kind of handle because they don't have the bandwidth to be able to provide that kind of enablement. But I do. So that's why we're going to do that now from day one. And the focus is to really bring in startups that have that MVP or are able to launch MVP within the first 2 weeks of the program, to be able to focus on community building, on partnerships, on founder branding, on getting content out there, on positioning, on you being able to pitch in 7 seconds or less, otherwise the person's out, that kind of stuff. That's my priority. Understanding, I can't tell you how many times I see, we have this great product. Who are your ideal personas? I don't know. Yeah. How can you build a product without knowing who you're selling this to? It's insane. That's to me, that's the basis, and that is the starting point. That is, that is the work, the mileage that needs to be done through the 13 weeks that we're going to be enabling those startups. So yeah. I would like to use this opportunity as well as an open call for any VC funds who are interested in partnering with us to be able to make this happen.
And how do they find you? How do they contact?
Well, on LinkedIn. So
on
yeah.
LinkedIn.
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. And then just going back to
sure.
your incubator, I understand that you're going to have some specialist advisors that are going to be helping out the projects. Maybe you could give us more details about their background and how they help.
Well, the idea, I'm not going to talk about the advisors specifically, but I will say how they will be used. So most accelerators will use a wide range of mentorship sort of models, but we're looking to really bring fractional advisors in as domain experts in specific fields, because I think that is, having a thought leader that makes things happen is going to be a unique angle in this case. So yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
All right.
So there's going to be a call for that as well, but I wasn't going to reveal it just yet. But yeah, we want to have more. I mean, obviously there's already fractional advisors that are on board, but we're looking to expand that. So yeah, and it's going to be launched in Portugal, which is super exciting.
Okay.
Yes.
When's that?
Sorry, again?
When?
Yeah. Well, the idea is to launch it within the next 2 quarters.
Okay.
But yeah, we want it to be in Lisbon. I think Lisbon is changing, the regulation is changing, but Lisbon is such a great hub.
Yeah.
And for me, it is important to also have it physical. Like I understand the value of hybrid, and I understand the value of remote.
Yeah.
But I think that there's just something so much more powerful to face-to-face enablement, and so that's why it's going to be face-to-face in Lisbon, which is kind of the Web3 heart of Europe, or it's looking to become the Web3 heart of Europe. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look, guys, you heard it from the man himself. You know, amazing incubator coming along. So you know, any VCs that might be interested, I highly recommend you reach out to Filippo on LinkedIn. Any brands, Web3 brands that are, I shouldn't use the word brands, I suppose I might confuse people. Any Web3 projects that are into Web3 and maybe struggling with that traction, Filippo's your guy. Great influencer on LinkedIn, always chatting to brands. I'm sure he can help you out. So listen, Filippo, thanks so much for joining us.
It's been a pleasure. I really appreciate that.
And yeah, have a great rest of your Paris Blockchain Week. Guys, that's EAK TV with our partners Crypto Slate. We'll see you again next time.